A former Japanese criminal gang member says he witnessed a patient being prepared for live organ harvesting in a Chinese hospital. He says he saw a Falun Gong practitioner with tendons cut before the man's liver was carved out for a transplant. It comes as research published this April accuses Chinese surgeons of taking hearts out from inmates who are still alive. Here's NTD's Jane Worrell with more.
As evidence mounts, the Chinese regime continues its lucrative organ trade from prisoners of conscience. A former criminal gang member in Japan recalls witnessing it. It was in 2007 that his friend's brother's liver failed, and they desperately tried to find him a liver transplant.
To have a liver transplant, if you were to do it, the only option would be to do it in America, France, or China. But the waiting time is very long in America and France, and he couldn't wait. It also costs a lot, and the regulations are very strict. So we chose Beijing, China. In Beijing, there's a military police hospital where they receive Japanese people. What about the donor? They said, we can have it ready straight away.
He says the family of the patient found the albumin from the Chinese hospital, a protein needed for a liver transplant, wasn't good enough. So Segura helped them buy the solution in Japan and smuggle it into Beijing with the sanction of the Chinese hospital. The day before the scheduled surgery, he was asked if he'd like to take a look at the donor.
When I opened the curtain, the donor was sleeping, drugged. He was sleeping. He had surgery to sever the tendons in both of his hands and feet the day before. I asked why. One reason was to prevent him from running away. Also, if a donor is tense, the body would shrink, which isn't good for the organs. That's the reason for this surgery. Then leave the patient in a hazy state with anesthesia like a drug. A young and very good liver, he said. I thought, terrible. He said, there are many people in China, so we can have donors. We can prepare matching ones, and there are so many bad people who have to die, so best to utilize them.
When he asked the doctor what the man had done, the doctor said he's from a terrorist group, and after pressing more, he answered, Falun Gong. Falun Gong is an ancient spiritual practice that's based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Falun Gong practitioners have been brutally persecuted under the Chinese regime since 1999.
Doctors killed.
In 2019, a People's Tribunal held in London found that Falun Gong practitioners were probably the main source of supply for forced organ harvesting, and there was evidence of mass medical testing of the Uyghur ethnic group. There are reports that say the Chinese regime is targeting the Uyghur ethnicity for organ harvesting to market them to recipients in Saudi Arabia. Investigative journalist and author of the book The Slaughter, Ethan Gutman, says the medical community needs to be more aware about how the Chinese regime works.
Whenever I'm asked what people can do about it, I just simply say, talk to your doctor. Ask them, have they heard of the issue? I don't care if it's their gynecologist. I don't care if it's your dentist. Talk to those people in the medical establishment. That is the way grassroots to push this issue to the top. This is a deep corruption of medicine. I shouldn't even have to say such a thing. It's so obvious. But the medical world has chosen to obfuscate and to ignore the issue. And unfortunately, they find it very hard to climb down from the position that, we should work together with the Chinese to solve this. I understand why they maybe felt they had to give it a try. Everything's worth giving a try at least once. But when something fails, and that's what the Uyghur situation indicates, is that it failed, leave the Uyghurs alone. Leave the Falun Gong alone. Move on. Start creating look, I would love to see an ethical Chinese transplant system. I would love to see an ethical Chinese medical system. I'm happy to move on from this field.
Investigations show China's organ transplant program to be one of the largest in the world. So far, a handful of countries have passed legislation that would stop their citizens from travelling there for organ tourism. Jane Worrell, NTD News.